Hey guys, Gwyned here, doing a quick DeckTech for this Is It Cyclops deck. This is my own kind of variation on it. Certainly I didn't create the deck, but I feel like I brought my own kind of unique flavor to it. Pretty typical stuff for the most part. You've got 4 copies of the key card, which is the Nivik Cyclops. Great thing about this card, 3 mana, 1/4 is perfectly serviceable. Obviously multicolor, not the greatest there. Kind of a horned turtle, serviceable, but probably not anything that would normally see play in Standard Pauper. But the fact that when you cast an instant or sorcery, you get +3/+0 and it can attack is definitely much better. Kind of the key to the deck is that you combine Nivik Cyclops with Artful Dodge, and that allows him to get in unhindered. Because he's got the 4 toughness, he's very difficult to burn off. You've got to have a black removal spell, and black has kind of been on the wane recently, so not as much of that running around, although there's certainly some of it. Even better, you can even cast Artful Dodge twice in the same turn, give it double unblockability as it will, and that pumps him all the way up to a 7/4 unblockable, which is definitely pretty good for a 2-card combo. And then, of course, just to make sure you have enough instants and sorceries, this deck plays quite a few of them. You've got 6 1-drops and 4, 8, 12, 13, 14 2-drops. Plus another 2 3-drops that are all instants and sorceries. So you've got plenty of instants and sorceries to help turn on the Nivik Cyclops. Also, because you're playing so many of those, Delver of Secrets is really, really good. Out of all the Standard Pauper decks, this is probably the deck that has the highest chance of flipping the Delver. Typically, one of the things you'll see in this build is Goblin Electromancer. That's actually been a card that, while I think is okay, has not been a card that I have decided to play, simply because if you look at this deck, it doesn't really need that much of the mana, but what it really needs is... Let me see if I can pull this up here. What it really needs is some more creatures. And the problem with the Electromancer is that it's not really a card that you want to attack with. When you have it, you tend to hold it back, simply because you want to get the most bonus out of the reduction from the instants and sorceries. You attack in with it, they kill it. It doesn't really do what this deck is trying to do. It's too fragile, and you certainly don't want to spend mana protecting it. So instead, I cut those entirely and replace them with a couple things. First of all, I am running 4 of the Frostburn Weird. Again, this is probably one of the best creatures in Standard Pauper right now. Again, you've got another Horned Turtle here. The 4 toughness, very relevant. But the fact that you can pretty much go up and down with his power and toughness as much as you want to, the fact that it's playable in both blue and red just makes this a really fine card. And then also, a little what I haven't seen in the other builds are these Scroll Thieves. These Scroll Thieves are nice because they can also use the Artful Dodge to full effect to go ahead and get in for a point, not only for a point of damage, but also draw a card. Essentially, you could use Artful Dodge twice on one of these guys, and you're basically up a card because you've spent Artful Dodge, but you've gained 2 cards, plus you've done 2 points of damage, so that's a pretty good deal. As far as the instants go, there's lots of flyers in the format right now, so Thunderbolts is definitely kind of a needed card to play 2 of those main, plus I have 1 in the board. 4 Think Twice, this is just a great way of, you hold up mana a lot with this deck, so the ability to use it as an instant is really nice. You get these in the graveyard, and they can even be a way of turning back on the Cyclops when you're not when you're defending. He certainly makes a great 4/4 defender, is also quite good. Also, just obviously helps you draw into more cards. Playing 4 Searing Spear as well, just a great, well-rounded removal spell. And then 2 copies of Brimstone Volley. Again, just a real nice way of getting rid of some bigger creatures, and can also be used as a nice finisher. Outside of burn, obviously I already mentioned the Artful Dodge. Play a little bit of kind of a small counterbalance thing. Not counterbalance, but countersweet. 2 Dispels, 2 Essence Scatters, 2 Negates. And then that just gives you some nice options against lots of different decks. Usually you don't keep all 6 in the deck when you're sideboarding. You can usually swap them out for something, but it's just an all-round nice defense. Can really help protect either a turn 2 Delver, or even protect against, like if they use double removal on the Cyclops, you can then go ahead and counter one of the 2 spells. There's lots of good things that you can do with the counters. And the other thing that I'm testing out right now is Faithless Looting. This is just another really nice, cheap sorcery speed card. that you can play twice in a turn to force through more damage with Nivik Cyclops, and just can be another way if you draw lots of lands to go ahead and get them out of your hand. Currently playing 22 lands, the full set of the Guild Gates, pretty much a split between islands and mountains, and then 2 Haunted Fengraf just for the ability to get some of your creatures back. Total creature count is only 17, which is a little low. This is kind of a tough deck to balance because obviously you want lots of sorceries and instants, but they don't really have a huge effect on the board, so you need creatures, so you really got to get a lot of mileage out of your creatures. And then, of course, playing 2 Nephalia Seakite, again, just as a nod to all the flyers. Again, you're holding up mana. This is a nice thing to do with the mana. Obviously, they don't count as an instant or sorcery for turning on the Nivik Cyclops, but just an all-around nice card, and the ability occasionally to get a good ambush, especially against White Weenie or even the Blue Flyers deck can be pretty nice. In the sideboard, the one sideboard option that everybody should be running is One-Eyed Scarecrow. Again, lots of flyers in the format. The big elephant in the room is mono blue flyers, and this card is just devastating them. Other than disperse, they don't really have anything they can do about it. You land 2 or 3 of these on a board, and blue flyers is pretty much just shut down. Electrickery is a nice card against any aggro and occasionally against certain green decks that run lots of 1/1s. Haven't seen a ton of aggressiveness in the format. Don't side these in very often. It might be worth replacing them with something else. Disperse is kind of the one thing that this deck can do against hexproof. They attack you with a hexproof creature that's got 1 or more enchantments on it. You go ahead and bounce the enchantment and then block with one of your creatures, and you're able to go ahead and kill it. The Curse of the Pierced Heart is just really good against other control builds. Particularly, there's a Dimir Mill deck running around, but even sometimes the Flickergate deck. This can be just a nice way of getting consistent damage through. Obviously, the fact that they can play the green elf that gains them 7 life helps them negate some of the usefulness of this, but can still just be a really good way to force through damage in slower matchups. And then Claustrophobia just gives you another option as a removal spell for anything that's bigger than 3 toughness, just kind of a nod to the fact that there are lots of those creatures as well. And when you're siding out the Thunderbolts, because they don't have a lot of flyers, which certainly happens against some decks, Claustrophobia obviously sides in really well to that slot. And then just 1 extra Thunderbolt in case you need it against a deck that's running a lot of those specific flyers that you don't really want the Claustrophobias for. So that is the deck. I've had pretty good success with it. Certainly not perfect. Actually lost in round 1 of the Hipsters of the Coast event, which is what I've been preparing for. But pretty happy with this deck, and certainly going to continue to play it going into week 2. So anyway, hope you've enjoyed watching, and I'll be back in just a minute with the practice match that I did.